The Thraxian delegation's footsteps echoed down the corridor, each heavy thud a drumbeat of impending war. Admiral Kira Novak pressed her palm against the viewport, watching their angular shuttle detach from Unity Station, its engines flaring with unnecessary force that sent nearby maintenance drones tumbling. "I didn't mean to," Captain Chen began behind her. "Save it," Novak cut him off, not turning around. "Intentions are irrelevant now." The station's AI chimed in with artificial calm. Thraxian vessel powering weapon systems. Defensive protocols engaging. Through the viewport, the Thraxian diplomatic shuttle's exterior plates shifted, revealing weapon ports that shouldn't exist on a civilian craft. A warning shot lanced past the station, close enough to trigger proximity alarms throughout the habitat ring. "They're making a point," Novak muttered, more to herself than to the stunned bridge crew. Lieutenant Commander Diane Park slid into the tactical station. The Thraxian dreadnought is powering up its main drive. Energy signatures consistent with jump preparation. Novak finally turned from the viewport, her weathered face illuminated by emergency lighting that had automatically engaged. At 53, she'd survived Earth's resource wars, the Mars Rebellion, and first contact with 3 other species. None had filled her with the cold dread she felt now. "Full tactical assessment," she ordered, moving to the command chair. Park's fingers danced across her console. 17 Thraxian vessels in system. Our assets include Unity Station, the Defense Platform Network, and 3 heavy cruisers currently on the far side of Earth. Local defense forces consist of... "Not enough," Novak interrupted. "Patch me through to Earth Defense Command." The main screen flickered to display Admiral Hassan's face, his expression already grim. "I've seen the transmission. The Security Council is convening now. We need to activate the Lazarus Protocol," Novak said without preamble. Hassan's eyes widened. "That's a worst-case scenario contingency. And what would you call this?" Novak gestured to the tactical display where the Thraxian vessels were forming a perfect attack formation. "Their conquest record is 17 for 17. No species has ever successfully resisted them. Nobody's ever spilled coffee on their emperor either," Chen muttered from his station, earning glares from everyone on the bridge. The lights dimmed momentarily as the station's power diverted to defensive systems. Outside, the Earth itself seemed small and vulnerable, its night side glittering with the lights of cities whose inhabitants had no idea their way of life was about to change forever. "Admiral," Park called out, her voice tight. "Picking up energy signatures from the Thraxian flagship. They're charging their primary weapon array." Hassan's image flickered as communication satellites repositioned to avoid the Thraxian jamming attempts. "Lazarus Protocol authorized. May God help us all." His image disappeared. "What's the Lazarus Protocol?" Chen asked, his earlier bravado evaporating. Novak's face hardened as she entered her authorization code into the command console. "The resurrection of Earth's combined military might. Every mothballed warship, every decommissioned weapons platform, every veteran with combat implants, all reactivated simultaneously." The station shuddered as the first Thraxian barrage struck its outer shields. "We've spent 3 generations building peace," Novak said, watching as dormant defense platforms around Earth began powering up, their positions forming a constellation of resistance. "Now we have to remember how to wage war." The tactical display updated, showing thousands of emergency transponders activating across Earth and its colonies as military reserves received their recall orders. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Novak ordered, standing to face the viewport where the Thraxian fleet loomed like predators scenting blood. "This is Admiral Kira Novak of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Thraxian forces, you have committed an act of unprovoked aggression against Earth and its citizens. We demand immediate cessation of hostilities." The only response was another barrage that made the station's structure groan in protest. "Very well," Novak whispered, then raised her voice. "All Earth forces, this is not a drill. We are at war. Sergeant Maya Rodriguez wiped mud from her face as she crawled through New Eden's dense underbrush. Rain pattered on broad leaves above, masking the sound of her movement. 3 months into the occupation, she learned that Thraxian audio sensors struggled to differentiate between rainfall and footsteps. 20 meters ahead, a Thraxian patrol stomped along the colony's main road, their exoskeletal armor glistening wet. 6 warriors, each nearly 3 meters tall, escorting a hover transport of human captives toward the processing center, once New Eden's community hall. Rodriguez tapped her wrist communicator twice. Simple clicks transmitted through the resistance network. 2 clicks north, Corporal Yoshida would be receiving her signal. 3 clicks east, former mining engineer Liu would be watching his makeshift sensor grid. Afternoon patrol, right on schedule. She whispered into her throat mic. They're struggling in this downpour. Breathing apparatus working overtime. The Thraxian homeworld was a high-gravity, low-oxygen environment. On New Eden, with its Earth-standard conditions, the invaders relied heavily on supplemental systems. Package ready, Liu's voice crackled through her earpiece, waiting for primary distraction. Rodriguez glanced at her watch, a simple mechanical timepiece. The Resistance had learned early that anything digital could be detected by Thraxian scanners. 30 seconds to go. Across the colony's former wheat fields, now burned to ash, Yoshida would be watching the same patrol through salvaged binoculars, counting down. The first explosion came right on time. A blinding flash followed by a concussive boom as a cache of mining explosives detonated at the colony's eastern perimeter. The Thraxian patrol instantly shifted formation, 4 warriors moving toward the disturbance, while 2 remained with the prisoner transport. Secondary, Rodriguez whispered. 2 kilometers away, Yoshida triggered the second diversion, a series of overloaded power cells creating a chain of smaller explosions along the northern fence line. The Thraxian commander barked orders in their clicking, chittering language. The remaining guards hesitated, confused by the multiple threats. One began scanning the tree line where Rodriguez hid. Now, she whispered. Beneath the transport, magnetic charges Liu had planted during the night patrol rotation activated, disrupting the vehicle's levitation field. The transport crashed to the muddy road, its Thraxian driver flailing as emergency systems failed simultaneously. Rodriguez was already moving, firing her salvaged Thraxian dart weapon as she emerged from cover. The projectiles, designed for the invaders' own use, carried a neurotoxin specifically calibrated for Thraxian physiology. The first guard collapsed mid-turn, nerve centers overloaded. The second guard managed to raise his plasma rifle before a dart struck his breathing apparatus. The Thraxian clawed frantically at his mask as the neurotoxin contaminated his oxygen supply. Move! Move! Rodriguez shouted as resistance fighters emerged from concealment around the transport. The rescued colonists stumbled from the downed vehicle, helping the elderly and children through the mud. 6 minutes until reinforcements. Yoshida's voice warned through the comm. Orbital scans will begin in 8. Rodriguez guided the colonists toward the hidden path through the dense forest. 3 months ago, she'd been a colonial security officer handling minor disputes among farmers. Now she commanded a resistance cell that had liberated over 200 captives. Sergeant, a young woman approached, supporting an older man. My father needs medical attention. Rodriguez recognized him, Dr. Solomon Wainwright, the colony's leading xenobiologist. Get him to the caves immediately, Rodriguez ordered, assigning 2 fighters as escorts. Tell Chen we found his priority target. As they melted into the forest, Rodriguez activated her secure comm link to Earth's last remaining military relay station. Phoenix Actual to Lighthouse. Package secured. Transmitting data now. On the other end, thousands of light-years away, Dr. Eliza Wong received the biometric scans Dr. Wainwright had secretly gathered while in Thraxian captivity. Detailed readings of the invaders' environmental suits, respiration patterns, and cellular samples. The missing pieces she needed to complete her analysis. We've got them, Wong whispered, watching the data stream in. We finally got their weakness. Admiral Chikaris paced the command deck of the Inevitable Dominance, his claws leaving minute scratches in the metallic flooring. The holographic displays surrounding him showed real-time feeds from a dozen occupied human worlds, each one a testament to what should have been another routine conquest. "Show me Ceres again," he demanded. The central projection shifted to display the devastation at the mining colony. 3 Thraxian destroyers lay partially embedded in the asteroid's surface, their hulls breached by what appeared to be modified mining equipment. The Empire's most advanced armor plating, penetrated by industrial tools never designed for combat. "Tactical analysis," Chikaris ordered. Sub-Commander Vexkar approached, mandibles twitching nervously. The humans utilized materials extraction drills modified to generate focused sonic pulses at the exact resonant frequency of our hull alloys. The modifications appear to have been made with spare parts. "Spare parts," Chikaris repeated, the words like poison on his tongue. "And the garrison troops, neutralized by environmental sabotage." The humans vented specific atmospheric mixtures into the habitation rings that crystallized within our troops' breathing filters. The compound appears to be a byproduct of their waste reclamation systems. Chikaris suppressed a shudder of disgust. "They killed our warriors with their excrement." "Essentially, yes, Admiral." The command deck fell silent as the implication sank in. The Thraxian Empire had conquered species with superior numbers, superior technology, even superior physical capabilities. But these humans, the Emperor demands a full report on this resistance. Chikaris gestured to a different display. "What of New Eden?" The hologram shifted to show night vision footage of human fighters moving through dense vegetation. The timestamp indicated it was recorded 3 standard cycles ago. "Our garrison commander implemented standard suppression protocols. Destroy their agriculture centers, established collection camps, executed resistance leadership." Vexkar's voice faltered. "Yet their resistance activities have increased by 47% since implementation." "Impossible." Chikaris struck the tactical table with his armored fist. "The mathematical models are clear. Resistance decreases proportionally to increased suppression. It is a universal constant of conquest. Not with these primates, Admiral." The voice came from Science Overseer Thuri, who had been analyzing human behavior patterns since the war began. "Permission to speak freely?" Chikaris waved a taloned hand impatiently. "The humans do not follow our models because they do not think as we do. When we destroy their food production, they don't starve as predicted. They adapt their diets to consume indigenous flora we classified as edible. When we execute their leadership, new leaders emerge immediately, often with more aggressive tactics." Thuri manipulated the holographic controls, displaying a series of human resistance actions across multiple worlds simultaneously. Most concerning is their lack of centralized command. Each resistance cell operates independently, yet somehow their actions form coherent strategic patterns when viewed collectively. "It's as if." "As if what?" Chikaris demanded. "As if chaos itself is their strategy, Admiral." On the main display, footage showed human children on Proxima Colony leaving heat signatures to lure Thraxian patrols into ambush zones. Elsewhere, elderly humans were reprogramming agricultural drones to jam communications. On Earth's moon, university students had repurposed scientific equipment to detect the unique quantum signatures of Thraxian cloaking technology. "They have no formal military training," Chikaris observed. "Their tactics violate every principle of strategic doctrine." "That is precisely why our predictive algorithms fail," Thuri replied. "We have always conquered species that think like us, even when opposing us. These humans." The Science Overseer manipulated the display to show a human resistance fighter jury-rating a civilian power cell to overload a Thraxian shield generator. "They view our technology not as we designed it, but as they can reimagine it." Chikaris stared at the displays, a creeping sensation he had never experienced before spreading through his nerve clusters. The High Command had a word for it: though it was rarely needed in the Empire's glorious history. Doubt. The Emperor expects results, he finally said. Implement Subjugation Protocol Omega. If we cannot predict them, we will overwhelm them. As the orders went out, G-Karas watched the humans on the displays continuing their incomprehensible resistance, fighting not as a military would fight, but as a species that refused extinction by any means necessary. For the first time in his distinguished career, Admiral G-Karas questioned the inevitability of victory. Captain Marcus Chen stood before the hastily assembled War Council in the underground bunker beneath what remained of Geneva. 5 months ago, he'd been a promising junior officer with a bright future. Now he was the coffee guy, the man whose clumsiness had triggered humanity's greatest existential threat, which made his current role all the more ironic. Project Nova isn't a weapon, Chen explained, pointing to the holographic schematics floating above the conference table. It's a lie, the most elaborate lie humans have ever told. Admiral Novak leaned forward, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the hologram. The months of war had etched new lines around her eyes, but her gaze remained sharp. Explain, she commanded. Dr. Wang's analysis of Thraxian psychology reveals they're pathologically logical. They can't comprehend why we don't surrender when their algorithms say we should. That's a weakness we can exploit. Chen manipulated the hologram, revealing a complex schematic of a non-existent quantum device. We leak information suggesting we've developed technology that neutralizes their weapons, technology that only functions within Earth's magnetic field. So we lure their fleet here, General Santos said, nodding slowly. But what happens when they arrive and discover there's no superweapon? Chen grinned for the first time in months. That's where the simulator pilots come in. At his gesture, the bunker doors opened. 20 young people filed in, most barely out of their teens. They stood at attention, though few had formal military bearing. Meet humanity's new fighter squadron, Chen said. Top-ranked competitive gamers from Earth's simulation leagues. For years, they'd been mastering physics-defying maneuvers in virtual environments that no conventional pilot would attempt. These children are our defense against the Thraxian Armada, Admiral Hassan asked incredulously. One of the gamers, a young woman with intricate neural interface tattoos along her scalp, stepped forward. With respect, Admiral, I've logged 12,000 hours in quantum-accurate flight simulators. I can execute maneuvers your trained pilots consider suicide runs. Aisha Patel, Chen introduced her, 5-time world champion in stellar warfare tournaments. She once outmaneuvered 50 AI opponents simultaneously. Dr. Wang, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. Thraxian battle doctrine is entirely predictive. Their tactics assume opponents will take the most logical course of action. These pilots don't fly logically. They fly creatively. The Thraxians literally cannot predict what they'll do because their algorithms have no framework for human improvisation. We've retrofitted simulator pods to control our remaining fighter craft, Chen continued. While the Thraxians search for a non-existent superweapon, these pilots will execute attack patterns no alien algorithm could anticipate. Admiral Novak studied the young pilots thoughtfully. And the ships themselves. Chen's expression darkened. That's the harder part. We've had to modify them beyond safety parameters. What he means, Patel interjected, is they've removed all safety limiters that prevent maneuvers that would kill a human pilot. Our neural interfaces allow us to fly them from the safety of these bunkers. The G-forces these maneuvers generate would liquefy a physical pilot, Chen explained. But unmanned, our ships can pull turns and accelerations the Thraxians will register as physically impossible. General Santos shook his head. This is insanity. You're suggesting we defend Earth with video gamers controlling what amount to suicide drones. Precisely, Chen replied without hesitation. Because insanity is the one thing the Thraxians can't compute. Admiral Novak studied the holographic battle projections for a long moment. Every conventional simulation showed humanity's defeat within hours of the Thraxian fleet's arrival. But these new projections, factoring in the unpredictable flight patterns of Chen's simulator pilots, showed something different: chaos, uncertainty. A chance. How soon can the bait be laid? She asked. Dr. Wang's team has already prepared the quantum technology leak, Chen replied. We'll transmit it through channels we know are compromised. Using encryption, the Thraxians can break with effort. They'll think they've discovered our secret weapon. And we're certain the Emperor will commit their main fleet. Hassan pressed. Dr. Wang nodded. The Thraxian Emperor cannot tolerate the existence of technology superior to their own. It violates their cultural myth of technological supremacy. He'll come personally to ensure this quantum weapon is destroyed, and to save face after the unexpected resistance we've mounted. Then we have a plan, Novik declared, rising to her feet. Operation Nova begins now. Aisha Patel felt the neural interface click into place against her implants, the familiar rush of sensory expansion flooding her consciousness as her bunker-bound body connected to a fighter craft in high orbit. The simulator pod hummed around her, its interior a perfect replica of the cramped cockpit she'd spent thousands of virtual hours inside. Except this time, the stakes were real. Squadron leaders, report status, she called, her voice carrying through the neural network to the 19 other pods arranged in the underground facility. Red Squadron, green. Jinho's voice, steady despite his youth. Blue Squadron, ready to dance. Fatima's characteristic confidence. Green Squadron, systems nominal. Raju's methodical tone. In her neural-enhanced vision, Aisha could see the Thraxian fleet emerging from hyperspace, a perfect formation of warships arranged in a fractal pattern that their battle doctrines considered mathematically optimal. Over 200 vessels, from nimble destroyers to the massive dreadnought that housed the Emperor himself. They're scanning for the quantum weapon. Dr. Wang's voice came through their tactical channel. All decoy emissions are functioning. They're detecting exactly what we want them to detect. Copy that, Aisha responded. All squadrons, prepare for protocol chaos. Remember your training. Be unpredictable. Be impossible. Be human. The small fleet of Earth fighters, barely 50 ships, all that remained of humanity's space forces, remained hidden behind Earth's moon. Their emissions dampened. Each vessel had been stripped down, weapon systems overclocked beyond safety parameters, maneuverability enhanced at the expense of structural integrity. Thraxian command vessels are moving into position around the magnetic poles, Admiral Novik reported from the command center. They're deploying sensor arrays to locate our superweapon. Commence Operation Nova on my mark. Aisha felt her heartbeat quicken. In the simulator leagues, she'd been known for maneuvers that defied conventional flight physics, exploiting glitches in gravity models, executing turns that would kill any physical pilot. Now those same moves would be performed by actual spacecraft. 3, 2, 1, mark. Squadrons, execute. Aisha commanded. 50 Earth fighters burst from behind the moon simultaneously, but not in any formation the Thraxians might recognize. Each pilot had programmed their own approach vector, their own speed, their own entry angle. To the Thraxian sensors, it would appear as though 50 ships were each malfunctioning in unique ways. Through her neural link, Aisha felt her fighter responding to thought commands faster than physical controls could manage. She spiraled directly toward a Thraxian cruiser, executing a corkscrew pattern that violated standard evasive protocols. They're not firing. Jinho reported as his squadron screamed through the gap between two Thraxian destroyers. Their targeting systems can't lock. Of course not. Dr. Wang's voice was tight with exhilaration. Their weapon systems are calibrated to predict logical evasion patterns. Your flight paths register as navigational malfunctions, not attack vectors. Aisha's fighter skimmed meters from a Thraxian cruiser's hull, sensors detecting the momentary confusion in the alien vessel's defensive systems. She triggered a modified mining charge, another of Chen's innovations, that attached to the cruiser's sensor array before continuing her impossible trajectory. Across the battlefield, Earth fighters deployed similar devices on dozens of Thraxian ships, not attempting to destroy them. That would be impossible, but planting the seeds of the true Operation Nova. Phase 1 complete, Aisha reported as her squadron regrouped in a deliberately asymmetrical formation. Commencing Phase 2. Simultaneously, in orbit around each Thraxian-occupied human colony, resistance fighters activated hidden transmitters. Sergeant Rodriguez, from the forests of New Eden, gave the order personally. Execute Phase 2. The modified mining charges attached to the Thraxian vessels activated, not as weapons but as transmitters, broadcasting directly into the Thraxians' internal communication systems. This is Admiral Novak of Earth Defense. Her voice echoed through every Thraxian ship, accompanied by sensory data specifically designed to disrupt their neural patterns. You've fallen for the oldest trick in a book you've never read. As the transmission continued, the simulator pilots executed Phase 2. Attack patterns designed not to destroy but to divide. Fighter craft sliced through the perfect Thraxian formation, forcing ships to maneuver independently, breaking the mathematical harmony of their fleet tactics. From the Emperor's dreadnought, Admiral Jacaras watched in growing horror as the elegant battle formation dissolved into individual vessels firing at targets their systems couldn't properly track, communicating on channels suddenly flooded with human cultural transmissions that overwhelmed their filtering protocols. It's not a weapon, he realized too late. It's chaos itself. Captain Marcus Chen pressed himself against the curved metal wall as a Thraxian patrol stalked past, their heavy footfalls echoing through the undercity of Thrax Prime. The air here was thick with industrial particulates and smelled of ozone, and something distinctly alien, a bitter, metallic tang that made his augmented breathing filters work overtime. "Clear," whispered Lieutenant Reyes, her adaptive camouflage suit shifting to match the burnished copper of the corridor walls. The 5-person infiltration team had spent 3 weeks in transit aboard a captured Thraxian scout vessel, their bodies gradually acclimating to the high-gravity environment through intensive gene therapy. Their Thraxian contact was already 20 minutes late. "Could be a trap," muttered Specialist Jackson, the team's xenolinguist and cultural expert. His eyes constantly scanned the unfamiliar glyphs etched into the corridor walls, maintenance notations, and warning signs that most humans would never comprehend. Chen checked the quantum entanglement communicator strapped to his wrist, a prototype device Dr. Wong had developed by reverse engineering Thraxian technology. No messages from Earth. Of course, if Operation Nova had failed, there would be no Earth left to send messages. "They'll come," Chen said with more confidence than he felt. "The Resistance reached out to us, not the other way around." The journey to Thrax Prime had been Rodriguez's idea, born from intercepted communications between Thraxian garrison troops and their homeworld. Fragments that hinted at internal dissent within the Empire. Messages that used linguistic patterns markedly different from military communications. A soft scraping sound from above was their only warning before a section of ceiling retracted, revealing a maintenance shaft. A slender Thraxian figure, smaller than any warrior they'd encountered, dropped down with surprising grace. "Follow quickly," the alien said in perfect, unaccented English. "The labor rotation ends soon. The warriors will flood these passages." Without waiting for a response, the Thraxian leaped back into the shaft with an agility that belied the planet's crushing gravity. Chen nodded to his team, and one by one, they followed their mysterious guide into the darkness above. The journey through Thrax Prime's undercity was a revelation. Chen had expected to infiltrate a warrior society. Instead, they passed through vast hydroponics chambers, where Thraxians with specialized appendages tended alien crops. They glimpsed research laboratories, where scientists worked on projects clearly unrelated to warfare. They even passed what appeared to be artistic studios, where Thraxians manipulated light and sound in ways Chen found hauntingly beautiful. None of these Thraxians bore the distinctive armor plating and weapon implants of the warriors Earth had faced. After an hour of twisting passages, their guide led them into a chamber hewn from natural rock, a stark contrast to the engineered precision of the rest of the Undercity. 24 Thraxians waited inside, their body structures more varied than any Chen had seen in combat. "I am Kithila," their guide announced, removing a breathing apparatus that had concealed most of their facial features. "Chief Archivist of the Forbidden Histories and leader of what you would call our resistance." Jackson stepped forward, performing the complex greeting gesture he'd decoded from intercepted communications. Kithila's eyes, 4 iridescent orbs arranged in a diamond pattern, widened in surprise. "You've studied our true language," the archivist said, not the simplified battle speech of the warrior caste. "We've been monitoring all Thraxian communications," Chen explained. "Your encrypted channels caught our attention. They didn't match the patterns we'd identified as military." Phala gestured to the gathered Thraxians. "Because we are not military. I present to you the unacknowledged castes of Thrax, scientists, artists, philosophers, historians. For 12 generations, we have existed in the shadow of the warrior elite who rule our society and claim our achievements as their own." On a nearby wall, ancient symbols glowed to life, projecting images of Thraxian history, not the conquest narrative humanity had been fed, but a complex civilization's journey, its artistic and scientific achievements, and its eventual subjugation by a military coup millennia ago. "The warriors tell your people they conquered 17 worlds through superior tactics and technology," Kithila continued. "The truth. Most of those technologies were developed by castes like ours, for peaceful purposes, then weaponized. And those conquered species, they surrendered because they believed the facade of Thraxian invincibility. But humanity didn't surrender," Chen said, beginning to understand. "No." Kithila's voice carried something Chen recognized despite the alien physiology. "Pride. You fought when mathematical probability said you should surrender. You adapted when doctrine said you should fail. You've done what we've been unable to do for generations." "What's that?" Rise asked. "You've proven the warriors are not invincible. And in doing so, you've given us the courage to reveal ourselves and join your resistance." Phala stepped closer, lowering their voice. "Now we must move quickly. While your Admiral Novak distracts the fleet, we will show you the warrior caste's greatest secret, what they fear more than anything else." "Which is?" Chen asked. "The truth about Thraxian evolution, that we were becoming a peaceful species before the warrior caste's violent intervention. A truth that, if broadcast across our systems, would undermine the very foundation of the Empire." The Emperor's inner sanctum aboard the dreadnought Eternal Conquest pulsed with an ominous crimson light. Admiral Jacares had never been summoned here before. Few had and survived to speak of it. The massive chamber was lined with trophies from conquered worlds, artifacts, weapons, and more disturbing items Jacares chose not to examine closely. "The humans continue to defy probability," the Emperor said without turning from the tactical display. His voice, unlike the clicking speech of ordinary Thraxians, resonated with artificial harmonics, the result of extensive vocal modifications designed to inspire both awe and terror. "They have proven, unpredictable, your supremacy," Jacares replied carefully. "Unpredictable." The Emperor finally turned, his ceremonial armor integrated with his exoskeleton in ways that blurred the line between technology and biology. "They are vermin who resist extermination. Nothing more." The tactical display showed the battle above Earth in real time. The elegant Thraxian formation had collapsed into individual ships pursuing human fighters that moved in patterns no tactical AI could anticipate. 3 cruisers had already collided with each other, their predictive avoidance systems confused by human pilots who deliberately flew toward danger rather than away from it. "The world breaker is prepared," the Emperor continued, gesturing to a separate display showing an ancient weapon being brought online, a device so terrible it had been used only twice in the Empire's long history. I will not allow these primates to humiliate us further. Your supremacy, Chikaris ventured, mandibles twitching nervously. The use of the World Breaker violates the ancient accord. Even the warrior caste might question. The Emperor moved with startling speed for his size, pinning Chikaris against the bulkhead with one augmented limb. You speak of accords, of questions. Have you been infected by human unpredictability, Admiral? And no, your supremacy. I merely suggest tactical alternatives that preserve the honor of honor. The Emperor released him with a dismissive gesture. Honor is claiming victory by any means necessary. The humans have forced my hand. The World Breaker will demonstrate the consequence of defiance to all who might consider following their example. On the bridge of the Resilient Dawn, Dr. Eliza Wong monitored quantum fluctuations emanating from the Emperor's dreadnought. The makeshift laboratory Admiral Novak had established for her was cramped but functional, allowing her to analyze Thraxian communications and energy signatures in real time. Energy spike detected, she announced, her voice cutting through the ordered chaos of the battle command center, consistent with theoretical models of their forbidden weapon systems. Admiral Novak moved to Wong's station, studying the readings. Time to deployment. 17 minutes, Wong replied grimly. Once fully charged, it will create a cascading quantum disruption that will destabilize Earth's tectonic stability. The planet won't be destroyed outright, but it will become uninhabitable within hours. Novak's expression hardened. Can we disable it? Not conventionally. The dreadnought's shields are still at 87%. But Wong hesitated, then brought up a different display showing a transmission originating from Thrax Prime. We're receiving a data packet from Captain Chen. Priority Alpha. The transmission resolved into technical specifications for the World Breaker, its power systems, control mechanisms, and most crucially, its kill codes. Cathila provided these. Chen's voice explained through the static-filled quantum channel. The weapon requires the Emperor's direct neural authorization to fire, but the safety protocols were designed by the science cast. They built in overrides. Meanwhile, aboard the Thraxian dreadnought, a junior communications officer approached Chikaris with visible trepidation. Admiral, we're detecting unusual transmissions across all our occupied worlds, the officer reported. They appear to be originating from within our own communication systems. Chikaris reviewed the data and felt his exoskeleton grow cold. The transmissions contained forbidden historical records, the true history of Thraxian society before the warrior caste seized control. Images of Thraxian art, philosophy, and peaceful scientific advancement spread across every occupied world, along with biological data showing the species' natural evolution toward cooperation rather than conflict. Most damning of all was footage from the Emperor's inner sanctum, captured moments ago through security systems compromised by Cathila's resistance, showing the Emperor ordering the use of the World Breaker, a weapon whose existence most Thraxians believe to be mere legend. The lower castes are rising up on 6 colony worlds, another officer reported, mandibles clicking in distress. Garrison commanders are requesting guidance. Some are refusing to suppress the uprisings. Chikaris looked back at the tactical display where the Emperor prepared to destroy an entire world rather than accept defeat. For the first time in his military career, the Admiral made a decision not based on doctrine or mathematics, but on something humans would recognize instantly: conscience. All ships, he broadcast on the command channel. This is Admiral Chikaris. Stand down weapons. I am relieving the Emperor of command under Article 7 of the Ancient Accord, protection of species integrity against existential threat. On half the ships in the Thraxian fleet, officers obeyed instantly, Chikaris's authority unquestioned. On others, loyal to the Emperor directly, weapon systems remained active. The unified Thraxian armada, undefeated across 17 conquests, began firing upon itself. The orbital platform designated neutral ground hung in space between the fragmented Thraxian fleet and Earth's defensive perimeter. Originally an international research station, It had been hastily converted into a venue for the most unlikely diplomatic encounter in human history. Admiral Novak stood alone in the central chamber. Protocol dictated a security detail, but this meeting required something beyond protocol. The airlock cycled, and the Thraxian Emperor entered. His massive form somehow diminished without his full ceremonial armor, though still towering over Novak's human frame. "You requested this encounter," the Emperor said, his artificially modulated voice stripped of its usual harmonics. "Speak your purpose." Novak had faced death many times during the war, but never had she felt mortality's presence so keenly as now, standing meters from the being who had ordered the extermination of millions. "Your world breaker is neutralized," she stated flatly. "Half your fleet stands with Admiral Jacaris. The resistance movements Cathila has coordinated are spreading across your colonies. You have no path to victory." "Victory?" The Emperor's secondary breathing vents flared. "I can still ensure your world burns before I fall. A single command to my loyal ship's would accomplish nothing." Novak interrupted. "Your weapon systems are compromised." Dr. Wong's team ensured that. Fury radiated from the Emperor's posture, but beneath it, Novak sensed something unexpected. Uncertainty, the emotional state a Thraxian warrior was never supposed to experience. "Then execute me and be done with it," the Emperor snarled. "Is that not why you summoned me here? To humiliate the Empire with my public execution?" "No." Novak took a deliberate step forward. "I called you here to offer you a choice." Through the viewport behind them, the battle had stilled. Ships from both sides watching the proceedings via the transmission being broadcast across human and Thraxian networks alike. Novak gestured to a display showing Cathila addressing a gathering of Thraxians from various castes. "Your civilization stands at a crossroads. For generations, the warrior caste has suppressed your species' natural evolution toward cooperation and peace. You've conquered 17 worlds not because it was your destiny, but because you feared what you might become without conflict." "Preposterous," the Emperor spat, but his secondary eyes flickered toward the images, a tell Dr. Wong had identified as indicating Thraxian cognitive dissonance. "Your own biology betrays the truth," Novak continued. "Captain Chen is transmitting the genetic records from your own archives, showing your species' natural drift away from aggression. Traits the warrior caste has fought to suppress through selective breeding and neural conditioning." The Emperor's massive frame seemed to sag slightly. "What choice could you possibly offer? My defeat is your victory. That is the way of conquest." "But it doesn't have to be," Novak replied, her voice softening. "Humanity doesn't seek the extinction of Thraxians or the dismantling of your society. We seek evolution, yours and ours. A chance to define relationship through something other than dominance." She extended her hand, a meaningless gesture to Thraxian culture, but broadcast across billions of screens, its significance transcended species. "Your warrior culture reveres strength above all. Today, I'm showing you a different kind of strength. The strength to end conflict when continuing would harm both sides. The strength to recognize when evolution serves better than extinction." The Emperor stared at her outstretched hand. "The 17 worlds we conquered surrendered because they believed we could not be defeated. You fought because we saw something worth fighting for," Novak completed. "Not just our survival, but the possibility that even the Thraxian Empire could change." For several heartbeats, the Emperor remained motionless. Across the combined fleets, weapons remained primed, fingers hovered over triggers, breaths were held. Then, with deliberate slowness, the Emperor extended one massive limb, its battle modifications retracting to reveal an appendage never seen by non-Thraxians, one evolved for creation, not destruction. "My scientists tell me," the Emperor said, his voice stripped of artificial enhancements for the first time, revealing harmonics of unexpected complexity, "that your coffee contains alkaloids that are mildly toxic to most species. Yet humans consume it daily." Novak's mouth quirked in a half smile. "We have a curious relationship with things that should harm us." Perhaps, the Emperor replied, completing the gesture that would be studied by xenobiologists for generations to come. That is something our species share. 6 months later, the new Geneva Accords were signed in the same chamber where coffee had once spilled on ceremonial robes. Cthulhu, now cultural ambassador for the reformed Thraxian Confederation, stood alongside representatives from Earth and the former conquered worlds. Captain Chen, no longer bearing the burden of having started the war, presented the final draft of the agreement to Admiral Novak and the former Emperor, now first speaker of the Thraxian Council of Castes. There is an ancient human saying, Novak remarked as the documents were formalized, that the most dangerous opponent isn't the strongest or fastest, but the one who refuses to fight according to your rules. An insight my people will remember, the first speaker acknowledged. We conquered 17 worlds because they believed our lie of invincibility. You defeated us because you saw through it to a greater truth. As the delegates dispersed, Dr. Wong approached Chen with a data tablet. The neural reconfiguration programs for the Thraxian warrior caste are showing promising results. Without the artificial aggression enhancements, their natural cognitive evolution is accelerating. And humanity? Chen asked quietly. How are we evolving from this? Wong smiled, gesturing to where human and Thraxian scientists discussed collaborative research projects. We're learning that sometimes the most significant victories don't come from destroying an enemy, but from transforming a relationship. Outside the viewport, Earth rotated serenely below, its cities rebuilding, its people recovering. Among the stars beyond, ships from both civilizations prepared for joint missions to repair the damage done to the 17 worlds caught between empires. Not conquest or surrender, but something new, a future neither species could have achieved alone. All because someone spilled coffee on the wrong alien at exactly the right moment in history.